What is going on, guys? Nathan here with a long requested Overwatch review video. In this video, I'm going to try to fit in everything that has been shown about Overwatch so far, and I'll try to condense what I think about it so far at the end. This video is probably going to be quite long because I'm really going to just break down character by character and how they're going to fit into the game, and I don't want the video to be like a half an hour long, but if that's what it takes to, I suppose, sort of tell you guys what I sort of think about the game, then maybe that's what it will have to be. So, first of all, I would like to say that Overwatch on the surface looks awesome, and everybody has been comparing it to Team Fortress 2, and they've been, the game, you can tell, took a lot of its inspiration from the characters in Team Fortress 2, and to me, I see absolutely nothing wrong with that, because Team Fortress 2 is arguably one of the greatest games ever made, and imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and if Overwatch can also manage to be a very, very, very successful game because it has modeled itself off of Team Fortress 2, and players have a fun time playing it, then that is all the more better to me. And honestly, I've been sort of thirsting for another shooter like TF2. The closest thing really that I think is on the market today that I can think of off the top of my head is something like a Counter-Strike, and I really sort of want that cartoony sort of just strategic sort of shooter, sort of that maybe is a little bit mindless, that you can just have fun in, stuff like that. So with Valve not really having any plans for a Team Fortress 3, I think Overwatch is going to be coming at the perfect time, and it is, in fact, set to be released sometime in 2015, which is awesome, because that is this year, and I cannot wait until this game comes out. The fact that it is made by Blizzard is also really reaffirming, because Blizzard has been successful in almost all of their games, and typically Blizzard tries to take, like, a concept of a game and sort of make the best game for that category. So for example, Hearthstone is an incredibly popular tabletop card game, and basically what Blizzard did is they looked at all of these other tabletop card games and said, hey, we can do something like this, and we can do really, really well on PC, and that's exactly what they did, and they made a great game, and I think that's exactly what is happening with Overwatch. So that's kind of my surface impression, so to speak, but I would actually like to break down all of the characters that have been seen so far in the, I think it's like 12-minute released sort of trailer for the game. Alright, so the first class on the list is the Reaper. Now, he is the sort of assassin character. It's kind of misleading though, because he actually has more health than the average class in the game, so I think he's more of just a very short-range, high DPS sort of single-target character. He's not that sort of stereotypical glass cannon assassin because of his increased health, but he does tend to deal a lot of damage, and I think that is what makes him really good, is that he doesn't really have a downside, it seems like. So he has 250 health. His auto attack is a ranged, I'm guessing it's between a medium and high damage shotgun. So he's got dual wield shotguns. I think it's like six shots in a magazine before he has to reload, and it's a fairly fast reload too, so he's really auto-focused, and he's going to deal most of his damage that way. Now his shift, so your shift ability in this game typically has to deal with some sort of mobility ability. Wow, that was a tongue twister. And the sort of mobility ability for the Reaper is this sort of cloak. Now it seems like this ability was sort of taken from the Spy from Team Fortress 2, which I wouldn't think it's as good as like a true cloak though, because the Reaper is actually like he's got this sort of black fog. Like he doesn't become invisible, he just becomes this sort of black fog that is still kind of easily seeable, but he does, it looks like he has a sort of small movement movement buff in that respect. So I think that's more for movement than for actually trying to sneak by people, unless you're trying to, I guess, outwit a sniper or something. But that is his sort of mobility ability. He doesn't have any sort of space ability, and his E, which is typically your sort of secondary ability in the game, is a short distance teleport. Now this is obviously meant to combo with his ultimate, which is actually a huge AoE damage output ability, but it looks like it's pretty close proximity, so you're going to be dealing a lot of damage, but you gotta get next to the enemy to do a lot of your damage. Now, but he has where the assassin, or I'm sorry, where the Reaper actually comes in very handy is basically his teleport ult, and in Overwatch, your ultimate actually builds off of how much damage you receive and how much damage you take. So one thing that is unique about this game, as compared to other games which sport the ultimate ability, is that characters that deal and take a lot of damage in this game will be pulling off their ult a lot more than the so-called support characters. So I think somebody like a healer, like a Mercy, I shouldn't say this for sure because I don't know the exact mechanics of each character, but in a video where some people were actually commentating a 6v6 match in Overwatch, they actually said that ultimates do build off of how much damage you take and how much damage you deal out, but they didn't mention any specifics for these sort of supporty type characters, but maybe that's also compensated for by the supporty type characters having very, very good ultimates. You can only maybe pull them off once a match, but they're very good. For example, Mercy actually has one of the best ultimates in the game, I think, and that might make sense then if support characters do have very good ults in that regard. So, pertaining to Reaper, Reaper's going to get his ultimate off a lot, and that's definitely where he's going to be dealing a lot of his damage, is in the ability called Death Blossom, which is that huge AoE proximity DPS thing. So Reaper looks like a very solid character overall, and that's what I also like about Overwatch on the surface, is that a lot of these characters fit, you can tell that they fit into an objective-based game. They all serve a purpose in some sort of regard, and they're all unique in their own respect. Reaper is always going to be a very solid pick, I think, and he is going to be a very offensive character, which he is labeled as offense in the game, but you're definitely going to want him on your attacking team. All right, the next character is Tracer. She is the sort of scout character of Overwatch. Obviously, the comparison to Team Fortress 2 has to be made here because she acts so much like the scout, in that she is very mobile, she's very squishy, but she also deals high damage if you have the skill for it. She has 150 health, so that is the lowest health in the game. She's very mobile, and her auto attack is going to be where she's dealing the most of her damage. It is ranged. It is, I would assume it would be a high damage output. It definitely has a high rate of fire, and a relatively quick reload time, so I'm thinking that the Tracer is going to be very autofocused. Now, her shift, which is basically her main ability, which is a short dash where you actually have 3 charges that sort of regenerate pretty quickly. So basically, you can dodge around your opponents trying to outmaneuver their shots, and if you run into a lot of trouble, you can actually press E, and basically that's a rewind teleport, so you'll go back to where you were maybe like 1 to 2 seconds ago, and to the enemy, they'll know relatively where you are based off of what direction you came from when they first spotted you, but that's definitely going to be a very good ability for Tracer as well. Now, her ultimate is probably one of the weakest ultimates in the game, I'm guessing, just because she tends to deal so much damage with her autos, and her ultimate is a sort of high damage AoE grenade. So basically, what she's going to do, I think her combo is going to be dashing into a sentry gun, for example, dropping her grenade, and then pressing E to teleport back to where she was a couple of seconds ago. That's definitely going to be her role, and she honestly looks like the character that I would sort of play, because I am a scout, or at least I was a scout main for a long time in Team Fortress 2, and she definitely appeals to me because she is so mobile. Alright, the next character is Hanzo. Now, this guy is just damage, and more damage. He doesn't really have much else besides just damage. So he is clearly the AD carry of the team, so to speak, definitely just the damage dealer. He has 200 health, so that's pretty average health. His auto attacks is where he's sort of focused. I would say they're definitely the majority of his damage, but he has other abilities that will do extra damage as well. So it's a long-ranged arrow that will deal, I'm thinking, medium to high damage, and I think you can headshot with this auto as well. I'm not entirely sure, but his shift ability is essentially an area of effect X-ray, so you can see people's like little symbols above their heads through walls. So this is going to be useful for finding targets, aiming, anticipating where your enemy is going to be, and stuff like that. His space is that he can climb walls. I think this might be short walls. I'm not sure how, far up he can climb, because that really wasn't displayed that well in the sort of example video, but he can definitely climb walls, so meaning he is going to be using height to his advantage a lot. Same with the sniper. His E is essentially a bouncing multi-shot, which is again meant to boost up his damage, just get more people basically with one ability. And then his ultimate is a very slow moving, but I would assume it's a very high damage projectile. So you can do this through walls as well. So essentially you can spam this ultimate on an objective, do a bunch of damage, and take out a bunch of people. But majority, I'm thinking this guy is going to be autoing a lot of the time, and maybe even trying to get some headshots. I'm not entirely sure if he can headshot with his auto attack. That'd be sick if he could, because it's definitely, like, headshots overall to me are always a positive in a game, because they reward you for essentially having the skill to aim for the head and then get the shot on target. So the next character is Mercy. She is essentially your healer support. She has 200 health, which is the standard of the characters. Her auto attack is a very low damage, slow projectile, but that's definitely not where she's focused. Her auto attack is essentially the equivalent of the needle gun for medic in Team Fortress 2. It's just really not meant for combat, and it's only meant for really self-defense. But her primary weapon, which is her healing gun, your mouse 1, so your left click, will actually heal, and I think it'll buff an ally as well beyond their maximum health. I'm not entirely sure on that, but definitely heals. And then if you press right click while you're healing an ally, it will actually give them a damage boost. So for example, you can damage boost your Farah, who is kind of a soldier type of character, when she's pulling off her ultimate to deal basically a lot of damage, all in spread over a wide area. So if your ally doesn't really need heals, then you could just be boosting their damage passively to sort of clear out the enemy. Her shift ability is to fly to an ally, so it'll give her more mobility, make her less susceptible to being sniped as she's crossing a choke point, which is always good. That's kind of one of the main weaknesses of the medic in Team Fortress 2, for example, is that he always has very predictable movement, and because of that, he gets headshot a lot. So it's good to see that the sort of healer support in this game has some ways to change up the pace of her movement so that she isn't always so predictable. And then her space is a glide ability, so essentially you can have more mobility as you're dropping from high elevation to low elevation, which is always nice. And then finally, her ultimate is an area of effect revive. I think this is honestly one of the most powerful ultimates in the game, simply because it is area of effect. So if you have 3 people die all at once because of Hanzo's ultimate, for example, you can queue into that area to revive all of them, and then all of a sudden your wall of defenders is back and as strong as ever. So she is definitely a very good character, and I think you're almost always going to need a Mercy on your team, especially when you're defending, just to basically keep your wall of defenders strong and healthy. The next character here is Farah. Honestly, she is the soldier from Team Fortress 2. The comparison has to be made. She is just so similar to the soldier. First of all, her health is 200, so she's not as tanky as the soldier from Team Fortress 2. She's just got the sort of standard health. The sort of standard health in Team Fortress 2 is about 175. So essentially, think of her as a soldier with the health of like a pyro or a demo man. So she has her auto is an AoE rocket, essentially. It's an AoE high damage blast, medium to high damage blast. That's definitely going to be a sort of Hanzo-y type of damage output. She's definitely meant to deal damage, and that's definitely represented by her auto attacks. And then her shift ability is to essentially rocket jump. So it's going to get a lot of elevation so that she can make more use of her auto attacks. And her auto attacks are actually pretty powerful because there are 6 rockets in a magazine that she has. So she can definitely spam a lot more than somebody like the soldier in Team Fortress 2. And she also has more mobility too, because she has a jump on command. She doesn't really have to take a health penalty to move around the map faster. I think this is a space ability. Let me check really quick. So her space ability is to float, or rather, not really float, but she has this sort of jetpack where you have fuel and you can propel yourself forward and upward as long as you have fuel in the jetpack. So again, another booster mobility. And then, let me check 1 second here. Her E is going to be essentially a displacement grenade. So you're going to shoot this, you're going to want to shoot this on like a payload cart, for example, to essentially have an AoE blast that will push people off of an objective. So that's definitely going to be key in certain situations. And then finally, her ultimate is essentially a stationary ray of damage. She has a very high damage output while she's ulting. The penalty obviously is that she's stationary, so she's susceptible to headshots and being focused, but otherwise that ray of damage is going to do a ton of damage. And this is good for spamming on an objective as well. So from the couple of gameplays I've seen of Overwatch so far, it seems like spamming is a really good tactic, because it seems as if the maps are very close quarters, and I think that's one thing that I would like to see changed a little bit is for the maps to be spread out a little bit more, just because people like Farah with her essentially ray of damage ultimate, the Reaper with his short range high DPS ultimate. Let's see, what other characters do we have here? Like Hanzo with his just focus his ultimate onto a specific area. It's just spamming an objective it seems like it'll be much more effective in this game than it might be for something like Team Fortress 2. And again, I will keep comparing this to Team Fortress 2 because it is very, very clearly a lot of its inspiration taken from that game. But yeah, Farah looks like a very solid character. I would say she probably has the lowest skill floor, so to speak. She's very easy to pick up and just start using her kit, especially with how mobile she is. So otherwise, she's a very solid character overall. Bastion is the next character on the list here. He is essentially mobile area control, and he is the other character that I'm very interested in playing because first of all, he has 250 health, so he's a little bit more tanky than the average person, so his auto attack is sort of, you're able to move around and use your standard assault rifle, so to speak, but his shift ability is to actually transform into a static turret, and when you are in this turret form, you have a 1000 health shield that is going to take a lot of punishing, so it kind of needs to be 1000 health, but you deal a lot of damage for being stationary, and this guy is going to be good on defense, and he, like, to me, he's going to also be really fun to use on offense because you can sort of defend your team that is pushing up, so to speak. So, like, if you're on, if your team is pushing the payload cart, you can quickly transform into a static turret, whether it's on high elevation or next to the payload cart, to actually just start mowing down guys. And while you're outputting this very high damage, because you're kind of taking that cut to mobility, you are also very tanky with that shield, which is nice. Now, it is worth noting that you are vulnerable in the back because the shield only covers the front, so he's very defensive oriented, but I think in terms of my playstyle, he looks really fun on offense, just because I like to use characters where they really aren't meant to be used, and that sort of high damage output, high tankiness factor looks very appealing to me personally. Now, his E, so the thing about Bastion, though, is that he doesn't have very much mobility. He doesn't have any sort of ability that will improve whether he can, like, climb walls or, like, jump or anything like that. So that is worth noting. But his E is a self-heal, so he has a lot of sustain. So Bastions don't really go away that easily. So essentially this can be used, like, if you're on a defending team and you start taking a lot of punishment and your shield goes down and you happen to take a lot of damage, then you can actually just self-heal right back up, go into turret form, and then start mowing down enemies once more. Now, his ultimate is, it looks like a very high damage mine. I'm not sure that this ultimate is going to be the most useful because Bastion is really powerful in his turret form, and I think that's where most of his kit revolves around, and I think his ultimate was sort of tacked on to his class as a sort of afterthought. It's a little bit utility, but it doesn't look to be that good, unless it's almost like an insta-kill where it does tons of damage, but that's sort of his kit. Alright, so Reinhardt is the next class here. He is your heavy of the game, so to speak. He is going to be super tanky at 600 health. Now, his auto attack is a melee. I'm assuming it's about medium damage. It looked to deal a decent amount of damage, but not like a one-shot or anything in the couple of gameplays that I saw. His shift ability is to essentially dash straight forward, and you actually end up doing a lot of damage, and I think it might just be an insta-kill on everybody except other tanks if you actually pin them with your dash. So if you happen to hit them with the dash, it will carry them with you and then pin them to a wall, and that will deal tons of damage. Now, his space, he doesn't have a space, but instead what he has is you can right-click to actually spawn a shield in front of you, which has 2,000 health. So this guy went from being super tanky to ultimate tank, and essentially Reinhardt is always going to be picked for a team, I think, because he's always needed to sort of push the front line forward with his super ultra tanky shield, and essentially he creates a focal point for your team to push forward with, so they can essentially hide behind that shield, and their shots and their auto attack projectiles will go through that shield, but the enemies will not, obviously. So definitely a guy that can take a lot of punishment. And finally, his ultimate is, I mean, pretty decent, I think. It's a short-range AoE stun, so essentially he knocks the ground up or something, and your opponents will fall down and essentially be stunned. And I feel like his ultimate will have a lot of use, given the right scenario when you're either defending or pushing an objective. So Reinhardt definitely looks really good. Definitely always going to be a pick for a team. Alright, next here is Symmetra. She is a utility support. So she has 200 health, so just your average amount of health for a class. Her auto attack is a short range sort of lock on beam. I'm not sure that this is going to do a ton of damage because her kit really isn't focused around damage output, so her autos kind of reflect that. Her shift ability is to place a small turret that will deal, obviously it will deal damage, and I think these small turrets they also have this sort of lock-on ability again, so it's not firing projectiles or anything like that, it's just like a straight lock-on beam, and that will constantly drain an enemy's health as it's in the proximity of the turret. Now, so she can use mouse 2, so right-click, to fire a charged slow auto attack, which I'm assuming will deal additional damage, but it's very easily dodgeable. So she has that sort of addition to her kit. Her E can shield an ally. Now, I'm not sure if this like gives them armor or like sort of buffs their health or just gives them damage reduction, but essentially the trailer sort of video just said ally, like shield an ally. So I'm not really sure what that entirely means, unless it's just like block a projectile with like a small portable bubble shield around them, so to speak. But Symmetra is most useful in that her ultimate can spawn a teleporter. So this is literally like the teleporter from Team Fortress 2, where it will teleport your, especially your attacking allies to wherever you set up the exit of the teleporter to be. So that's going to be definitely important when you're attacking. You're going to need to establish a very strong, a very moving front line. So she's going to be most useful in that regard. And I don't think you're going to need more than even 1 or 2 Symmetras per team, being really she doesn't look like she does a lot other than that for her team. Like it doesn't look like, again, this is speculation. It doesn't look like she deals a ton of damage, but it looks like her kit is centralized around her use of the teleporter. Alright, so the next class is Torbjorn, who is very similar to Bastion in area control, except he has more defensive, sort of static area control. So he has 200 health, so your average class health. His auto attacks are ranged. They look like they would do about medium damage. He can right click to sort of switch to like a shotgun auto attack, which looks like it's more useful in close range, or maybe it just might be a straight damage buff. But otherwise, his shift ability is to place and then upgrade a static turret that will have auto aim that can lock on to enemies and start dealing damage. Now, these are pretty much the turrets from Team Fortress 2, where you have ammo, sort of this metal currency that you spend, so to speak, by hitting the sentry gun to upgrade it so it deals more damage and stuff like that. It probably has more health as well, and he can basically place that on an objective, just like in Team Fortress 2, to defend and have really hard area control. So his E ability is to place an armor pack, so that's going to be useful for buffing your allies. So he has a little bit more utility, a little bit more adds to the team in that regard. And then finally, his ultimate is that he gets really tanky, he gets a lot of health, and he builds and upgrades sentries a lot faster. So essentially, you do this if you're either close to dying and you need a little bit of extra health, but mostly it will be used for the attacking team is probably close to winning and you really need to get a sentry up like right now. So you ultimate and then you start tanking and turtling that sentry and get it up to its max level, whatever level that is. I'm assuming level 3 because that's kind of what it is in TF2 and that would make the most sense. But yeah, so his kit definitely very defensive. Alright, Widowmaker is the sniper of the game, and from the couple of gameplays that I saw, Widowmaker is very, very good. And this might be just because snipers on PC tend to be a lot more powerful because people are generally better at aiming on PC than on something like a console. Not saying that PC players are more skilled necessarily, it's just that aiming with a mouse is overall easier than aiming with a joystick. So anyway, she is a sniper. She has 200 health, so your average health count, and her auto attack. So the thing is, her rifle that she carries doubles both as a sniper rifle and as sort of this assault rifle. So the assault rifle form is ranged, I'm assuming low to medium damage because her kit is obviously centralized around sniping. The thing is that you can only snipe people as the sniper when you are scoped in. So otherwise it will fire at people using the assault rifle mode. So that's, I thought, was pretty interesting actually. So essentially, she'll scope in with mouse 2, and then I believe her shots charge up to deal more damage, and then you can, for even additional damage, you can then headshot enemies, and that will deal additional damage. So she is definitely very good, very high single target damage output, kind of your stereotypical sniper, but yeah, she has that average class health, so not necessarily a glass cannon, but she definitely is very high DPS. Her her shift is a grappling hook, so this is definitely meant to make use of, or give her some extra mobility so that she can get to very heightened positions, so that she can essentially take up sniping positions and start dealing damage that way. So that is definitely good. One thing that I find a little bit frustrating in Team Fortress 2, for example, is that the sniper in that game doesn't really have any like sort of movement buff or anything like that. So to see a sniper actually have some sort of ability that will either allow her to escape or allow her to reach a good sniping position is good to see. And then her E is a poison mine. I'm guessing this is more to alert, like put it in a hallway behind your position, for example, so that maybe when it explodes, you can tell that somebody is near you. But I don't think that's going to deal a lot of damage necessarily, more for the alertness effect. And then her ultimate is a sort of like X-ray wall hack ability. She can see through walls. Now, I'm not entirely sure how deep this goes, but this looks like a really, really good ability, because not only can you scan the area around you to see if there are any threats approaching you, because there are actually kill cams in this game, so people can identify where snipers are all the time. But she can also identify like enemy medics, very important enemy classes that are, you know, fighting over a payload cart, for example, and that will also make it very easy to aim, because you don't have like because enemies are essentially highlighted, you don't have all of the distractions of like projectiles flying around the enemies and stuff like that. So that's definitely a decent ultimate, not the most powerful, but definitely interesting. It'll be interesting to see how she performs with that ultimate when the game is released. Alright, so we have the second tankiest character in the game next. Winston is a sort of bruiser character, I would label him as. He has 500 health, which is second in comparison to the 600 of Reinhardt. His auto attack is the sort of short-ranged, like, electro beam. I'm not entirely sure how much damage that looks like it'll do. Yeah, I'm not really sure what Winston is in terms of class. He's a little bit harder to figure out, but his shift ability is going to be a jump, so he can reach basically positions where snipers might be sniping from to take them out, or just general mobility. And then his E is a bubble shield, so this is going to be his main ability, I think. It's probably going to be just to help out with objectives and stuff like that, especially defending. He's probably more of a defending type of tank than attacking, because that bubble shield will protect the allies inside it from like almost all projectiles, at least it looks like. And that, I think he's meant to take a lot of damage, because his ultimate is that he upgrades to 1000 health. It looks like he deals more damage with like upgraded auto attacks, and then finally, I'm not sure if you like click to like activate this ability or whatever, but he'll actually jump to an enemy, and it looks like that does a ton of damage. So I'm thinking that essentially Winston is meant to take a lot of damage and then ult very often. I think that's kind of what his kit is centered around, and his bubble shield is just sort of added utility. I would say that he's probably the worst class in the game, to be honest, just because he doesn't really have a clear-cut position as a character in terms of taking or holding an objective. So he's just kind of weird like that. And the final class in the game is Zenyatta. Now, this character is I would label him or her, I'm just going to call him him because it looks like a male, a utility support. So he is tied with Tracer for the lowest health in the game at 150. His auto is ranged. It looks like it will probably do low damage, although it does have a decently fast fire rate. His mouse 2, so he can change his auto to essentially charge it, and it will lock onto an enemy, and then that will deal, those projectiles will fire all at once. It's it's essentially a shotgun blast that will lock onto an enemy and deal a bunch of damage. So that looks pretty promising about him. I really like that. And his shift is probably his best ability, I would say, other than his ultimate, which is that his shift places a healing orb on a teammate, which slowly heals them, and also I think it buffs them a little bit too. I'm not sure on that, but that orb will, I think, permanently, or at least for a long time, like stay on that teammate to keep healing him. So if you place a healing orb on somebody like a Reaper, when you know that the Reaper is going to go in and ult into a bunch of enemies, then that orb will definitely help him keep him alive and just add a little bit more sustain. His E is this sort of orb that you place on an enemy. Now, I'm not entirely sure what it does, but what I would guess it does is that it increases the damage that will be dealt to that particular enemy. That's definitely a good ability. Depending on how long range it is, I'm not really sure if it's a projectile that you fire or if you have to like lock onto the enemy for it to be placed. But essentially, you can, if it does increase the damage dealt to that enemy, you can really sort of focus targets that way. And if you place it on like a medic, for example, and that medic is caught in a choke point with a lot of spam, then that medic will probably go down, and it's good to have an ability that can sort of focus a character like that. Now finally, his ultimate is an AoE heal that centers around him, and while this is going on, he can move around, so it's a moving AoE heal, pretty large radius as well. So his ultimate is definitely his best ability. This will definitely keep your teammates alive. If you're really trying to push that last mile for an objective, it's almost like a mini AoE Uber charge for your teammates. Kind of just really keep them alive in the time when it matters most. And yeah, so very, very utility type of support. This is definitely a good class. A class that you'll probably see often just because his orb ability and his ultimate ability are so awesome. And that's pretty much my breakdown of the characters in Overwatch, along with some thoughts as to how Overwatch will turn out. I think, honestly, Blizzard tends to make their games they just make awesome games, and I would be astounded to see that they screwed up this game in particular, just because even it's months before it's been released and it already looks awesome, and like many people I know want to play it. And I mean, if this does become the new Team Fortress 2, I don't see anything that's wrong with that, because Team Fortress 2 already has an awesome community, and to see that awesome supportive community move to, just a very similar game like Overwatch would be awesome. I mean, I personally am again thirsting for a game like TF2 that's new and updated and is from, modern day 2015, because TF2, although it's been updated obviously so many times, it is still from 2007, and while it is one of the best games ever made, it's getting old. Like, it's getting up there in years already. Honestly, any other game should be dead by now, but TF2 has somehow managed to survive. And I mean, I would just love to see Overwatch become successful, and for people of the TF2 community to switch over to it, because you guys are all awesome, and you would also make this game succeed in its own right. Alright, so that was pretty much my in-depth analysis, I guess, would this be called, of Overwatch. I am impressed so far. I want Blizzard to succeed with this, because Blizzard makes awesome games, and the game looks awesome already. And yeah, so that was the video, guys. Thank you all for watching. As always, please leave a rating if you are still watching. I always appreciate it, and feel free to subscribe to see more content. Not necessarily content like this, because it's sort of a blue moon when I actually make such a long review video like this. But if you enjoy my sort of content in the past, that I made in the past, then feel free to subscribe. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. And yeah, so thank you all for watching, as always, and see you later.